I'm so excited to have this conversation because today is also the first day of OCD Awareness Week, so we get to double up on our awareness this today. Hi, Katie. It's so nice to
Hi.
meet you.
I'm so glad to be here with you, and thank you for inviting me. And I was just going back, I was actually watching some of your previous streams from BFRB Awareness Week, and you've just done such awesome stuff. So it's just thank you for the amazing work you're doing. And we're following.
And we're falling. It has been a joy. We used to do Insta Lives like once a week, and we kind of just like, fell off the calendar. Whoop, falling again. Um,
We're literally falling off.
literally falling. And it's been so fun to just connect with different community members on how they are, healing themselves and then also helping others on these different, you know, BFRB journeys and now also OCD journeys. For the folks who don't know, well, I mean, how would you know? You weren't there, but Katie and I met at the IOCDF conference this July. We both had booths for HabitAware and Katie for
Stick with the it.
Stick with the Ick,
Yeah.
which is a great name, and we're gonna get into why in a moment. But I just, was enamored with the amount of joy coming out of your booth,
Oh, thank
and and um, and just this idea of how you're building sort of an interfaith community for folks with OCD. So let's first start with your personal journey
you.
and tell us a little bit about, from age 0 to here.
Yeah.
Go
uh,
for it. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm always like, and I'm gonna condense this like really, really abruptly. No, I mean, so I've navigated OCD since before I can remember, and interestingly enough, have navigated BFRBs also since before I can remember. I actually, it's so interesting because I don't advocate as much on that side or get to talk about it, but I was really excited also today to get to share a little bit about what that has looked like for me. But really, since childhood, I had all of these what ifs bouncing around my head. And I remember calling my parents into my room when I was 5 or 6 and saying, like, well, did I hurt somebody at kindergarten by mistake? Am I a bad person? Did I say something bad to somebody? What if this? What if that? And it really kind of grew throughout my life. I had my first talk therapist in 3rd grade, which we all know talk therapy is not helpful for OCD and can actually make it worse, but I pretended to get better because I wanted him to feel like he was good at
Mm,
his job, which kind of fed into my own OCD. So went through so much of my life trying to not let folks know how bad it was. And by the time I got to actually seminary, I went to grad school at Emory to do my Master of Divinity. It was really bad. My whole life was consumed by not letting people know compulsions that I was doing. I was driving back to downtown Atlanta in the middle of the night to check to make sure church doors were locked and candles were blown out where I was interning to make sure folks experiencing homelessness were safe and that nothing bad. It became like this weird thing where I felt like I had to protect absolutely everyone and put myself in challenging situations to try to protect everybody. At that time, I went to a leader in kind of the seminary space and denominational space and said, I think I need to seek treatment for OCD. So I was doing a dual program with the School of Public Health and had taken some psych courses, kind of recognized, thought it might be OCD. And unfortunately was told not to seek treatment, and I was told don't tell anybody, don't let anybody know, you're up and coming in ministry, and you won't pass your psych evaluations, no one will respect you. So I felt so much shame, and it had taken me so much to that point to even share what I was experiencing, that I didn't get treatment, and actually studied how to lie on my psych evaluations for ordination to get around stuff, and was ordained, and moved into a huge academy chaplaincy role at age 25 with untreated, undiagnosed severe OCD. And it latched onto everything for me in that role. I was responsible. It was an interfaith role, so I worked with students from all different faith backgrounds, but I was responsible for kind of the spiritual life of 2,700 families and was the first line for grief, trauma, and loss. And yeah, OCD latched on in ways that related to harm and
Mhm.
scrupulosity and false memories. And unfortunately, when I lost students to their own mental health struggles, I blamed myself in really tangible ways because of my untreated OCD. So ultimately hit rock bottom, and treatment saved my life. ERP very much saved my life. And I didn't want to be quiet about it anymore after that experience. Sorry. Are you getting a bunch of feedback on your side too?
I am not.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. As
Yeah,
long as you're not hearing it.
it
Okay,
sounds
so,
good to me.
okay, perfect.
Um,
Okay, great.
I want
Um,
to,
yeah,
we're going to keep going, but I want to go back to what you said about the what ifs as a
yeah,
child. When does the what ifs become, and I know you're coming from your lived experience
yeah.
here, but when does the what ifs shift from anxiety to OCD? Like, what are the differences there
Yeah.
you
I
see?
mean, so with when we think about like generalized anxiety, the what ifs tend to be things that actually can happen in day-to-day life. And with OCD, it typically relates to kind of our core fears, the things that we're most fearful of. And sometimes it kind of takes a turn that is a little bit more extreme. So when I'm thinking about, for me, core fear is what if I'm a bad person? So it takes the form of like, what if I accidentally killed someone? What if I burn this thing down? What if I run over someone with my car? When we're thinking about anxiety, it might be more general day-to-day things that, yes, it's still heightened anxiety, but that rationally someone might experience, like, oh, I'm feeling anxiety about this test, or I'm really nervous about this upcoming proposal with my job. But with OCD, we see it as having these intrusive thoughts that are ego dystonic, that go directly against a person's identity. And then it's accompanied by compulsions to try to get rid of the fear, guilt, shame, anxiety, or disgust that's coming up with those thoughts. So when we're thinking about OCD, we're thinking ego dystonic, we're thinking a little more out of kind of the realm of something that we're thinking in day-to-day life, and we're thinking the obsession and compulsion combo. Oh, I can't hear you now.
Sorry.
Okay.
So with
It's okay.
anxiety, I put myself on mute because I don't know if the sound from outside of this room is coming in here. So
Oh, okay.
I wanted to just, um, so with anxiety, there's that what if, and it feels like with OCD, there's that what if, and also that idea, so like that, those obsessive thoughts, but then also this idea of the compulsion, which is like an action to correct the obsessive thought sort of thing. And then you kind of get stuck in that loop.
Yeah, and I always say like the compulsion, it's so interesting because we always think of it as like, oh, obsessive thought and then compulsion. And sometimes we miss the middle point, which is after the obsessive thought, someone experiences, of course, a really challenging emotion, so discomfort. And it used to be,
Mhm.
OCD used to be classified as an anxiety disorder, and it's now its whole separate own thing in the DSM. And I always tell folks that makes me feel special. I'm glad we have our own thing, our own category. But I'm really glad because it's not just anxiety.
Right.
Yeah, anxiety can be a form of discomfort, but also fear,
Mhm.
guilt, shame, disgust. So for a lot of people with scrupulosity, shame and guilt are the primary components. And the compulsion is less about getting rid of the intrusive thought and more about, I don't want to feel those really challenging emotions. So let me do this to try to feel better. And we might initially a little bit, but then it reinforces the cycle and it starts all over
Mhm.
again.
Mhm. All right, you brought up ERP.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is? That is
Yes.
the main treatment for OCD, the evidence-based treatment. But what does ERP stand for and how does it work?
Yeah. So ERP, or exposure and response prevention, falls under the umbrella of CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. But it's a really specific type of treatment that's considered first line gold standard for OCD, that involves being exposed to the things that we're fearful of and really intentionally bringing up those obsessions, those intrusive thoughts, or even those difficult feelings that come with it. And the whole goal is when we bring those up, that we're going to focus on the response prevention, which means not doing the compulsion. I have a good friend that I work with often, Emily Bailey, in this space. I always have to give credit to her for this. She says little e, big RP, that sometimes we focus when we describe the treatment more on the exposure side, but it's actually really about the response prevention
Mhm.
side. We're doing things that are really tough in order to focus on not engaging in the compulsion, which rewires our brain and helps us to kind of
Yeah.
approach things differently. So an example might be for some of the things I was talking about with like worrying that you ran over someone with your car. The exposure might be reading stories about hit and runs and then doing the response prevention by not ruminating or not going back to check with your car, intentionally sitting with those tough emotions, which is actually what stick with the ick means.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That icky, right? So that icky feeling, right?
Yeah.
And even with body focused repetitive behaviors, hair pulling, skin picking, nail biting, we're talking about discomfort in different ways, right? And our body's just responding, maybe not with these thoughts, obsessive thoughts, but with unwanted hand movements. And that I loved that idea of it's little e, big R P, because that response training that you're doing with OCD is parallels, right? It's not the same, but it parallels the response training that needs to happen with body focused repetitive behaviors, that you need that awareness to pause, to know.
Oh, your sound's gone again.
And when it comes to OCD, choose to not engage with the discomfort, right? To sort of let the urge pass, urge like surf the wave, if you will, and try to, um, yeah, like minimize the power of the thought, right? Wow, that really hit in terms of I kind of now see why BFRBs and OCD, why BFRBs are classified as OCD and related
Yeah.
conditions a little bit more. Because like you're saying OCD used to be under anxiety and now it's its own thing. And I would love to see BFRBs as its own thing because the treatments are different. Like you
Yep.
don't want to expose someone to, okay, pull your hair, pull your hair, pull your hair. Like, no, it doesn't, like, it just doesn't, that's not the evidence-based
Yeah.
treatment for BFRBs. But there is a parallel there of the highlight of learning how to respond in
Mhm.
healthier ways. So there is some overlap there, which I'm kind of glad to see now, if you
Yeah.
will.
Well,
Tell
as
me
we get
about,
into talking about this, I'm
yeah,
hearing even more, and I'll be honest, I am learning more about
yeah.
BFRBs because I've always sort of known that was a part of my experience. And it's something that, this is actually the first time I'm really saying this on a live stream, but that has been, become more and more challenging for me actually throughout my OCD recovery. And I think there's, I don't know the reason for this. I mean, I can speculate, but I think for me, for such a long time, compulsions kind of were my coping mechanism for anxiety. And I have found myself, especially for me with dermatillomania and for with skin picking, has become really challenging for me over the last year. And I'm learning more and more about kind of what the treatments for that look like. And there's such an overlap too with me, of course, distracting and things like that, but also being okay with the discomfort of not doing that and really
Yeah.
retraining. And it is, I've kind of seen the connection too, even as we're just talking about it, to kind of that response prevention piece and where that overlaps. But I also, like you, want it to be its own category.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, like having it as its own category, I think just will help with research and that kind of thing, where and then it truly allows it to kind of be like I don't know, like there's obviously a lot of overlap between OCD and BFRB, but if you only use one treatment, then like, like I'll find that I'll find that like if I take care of just one part of me, right, then the other part goes whoosh. So it's like, how do we figure out how they go hand in hand a little bit more? Um, You also mentioned a word that I don't know if everyone's going to know, scrupulosity. Can
Yes.
you define that a little bit?
Yes, I would love to. This is my favorite question because it's what I do, is do work on scrupulosity. And scrupulosity is, well, I'll back up for just a second first and say OCD can take on a lot of different forms. And it really relates to the things that are the most important for someone. And it takes those things, it latches onto them, and it twists them. So that might be about harm. It might be about family. It might be about pets. It might be about health or cleanliness. Really, anything you can think of that's important to you, it'll twist. So when we think about that, of course, faith and morality are important to a lot of people. So that is kind of a breeding ground for OCD. And scrupulosity is a form of OCD that relates to either faith or to morality. So we often talk about either religious scrupulosity or moral scrupulosity. And the word scrupulosity actually comes from the Latin word scrupulum, which means small, sharp stone. And it's this idea that you have a small little stone stuck in your shoe, and the more you pay attention to it and the more you try to get it out, the more bothersome it becomes. But yeah, so that's what
Okay.
scrupulosity is.
Okay. So where our faith or our morality, so what we believe is right,
Hmm.
kind of jars with these obsessive thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So it could come in the form of what if I'm praying incorrectly? What
Mm-hmm.
if I and what if God is angry with me? What if I sinned? What if I ritually washed or prepared food incorrectly?
Mm-hmm.
What if I'm not a moral person? What if I'm a bad person? This can look different across religious and spiritual traditions and cultures. And I work really across the board, but it even can be, often folks say, think this is for someone who is religious. It can, of course, be for folks who are not religious. I even see a lot of folks who are atheist and agnostic who have obsessions about, well, what if I'm wrong about this thing? And
Mm-hmm.
what if this faith that I don't necessarily believe in punishes me for not believing
Right.
that? So it can take
Or
on so many different forms. Yeah.
yeah. Can can prayer be a compulsion? And I say this like with some caution here, right? Because we're not giving medical advice here. So if prayer is working for you, I want you to just make sure that you don't, like stop, because I actually did that. Someone in some Facebook group told me that prayer was a compulsion, and then I stopped praying, and like, oh man, it was not the right thing for
Yeah.
me. And so, please seek professional advice when taking control of your
Yeah.
health and your mental health. But what do you see there? I mean, like, you run Stick with the Ick, you have people in the community. What happens when someone is using prayer as a compulsion? How
Hmm.
do you help them? Because there is such a good power in prayer, but then also,
Yeah. Yeah. We
yeah.
actually we talk about this literally every day and Stick with the Egg, because this can come up with prayer or with reading scripture or with meditation or with anything that's significant to someone spiritually. And I usually start by saying, anything can be compulsive, but it's
Mhm.
not about the thing itself. It's about the function at that given time. It's why are we engaging in it? Is it from a space of meaning and connection and joy and hope and comfort? Or is it from a space of fear and guilt and anxiety? And I have to get this right. And I have to do this right now in order to feel better, or something bad's going to happen. So in Stick with the Ick, we have kind of a combination of chaplains and spiritual leaders and psychologists working together, and we encourage everybody to be in treatment with their own providers, but then to come to groups and connect in community. And one of the things we do in community and in our courses is we have a chart that kind of breaks down and asks, well, the spiritual practice that you're engaging in, why are you doing this right now? Are you doing it from a space of fear, or are you doing it from a space of connection? And we typically
Mhm.
encourage folks that if right now you feel like you have to pray to get it right and to make sure nothing bad's going to happen, that maybe in that moment, it's actually an act of faith or a spiritual practice to try something different. But if
Mhm.
you're praying, you can even kind of reframe that. We encourage folks to pray to be able to sit with the fear and anxiety, not to get rid of it, to pray from a space of meaning rather than kind of a space of fear. So I would say it comes down to it could be different at different points in the day, but it's all
Yeah.
about
Okay.
thinking what is the function.
Yeah. So that was my error, was thinking all prayer is a
Right? It gets
compulsion,
so black and
right?
white, and that's
It's so black
I'm
and white, and we
yeah.
can't be black and white. And so, I love what you said about the function.
Hmm.
Is it to kind of quell the fear, versus, just like an act of faith, right? And so,
Hmm.
fear. You mentioned shame. You mentioned a few other like negative feelings, right? Anxiety, fear, shame. When we lead with these negative feelings, that is feeding whatever mental health condition we have, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really, really important to move slow enough to understand the function of the
Hmm.
mental health condition and what emotion is in the driver's seat. um, I really like that we're having this conversation because it's really just like clear, like making things so clear to me right now. Hugo asked a question about depersonalized and derealized.
Oh, I
Um,
saw the depersonalization and derealization question.
yep.
I will say
And
this is
yeah, do you have any?
I will say, Hugo, I will be honest. This is there can absolutely be a tie to OCD. This is something that can be more prevalent for folks with OCD, but this is I'm a minister who specializes in scrupulosity. This is less my specialty area, but I would recommend IOCDF has an Ask the Experts tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be with Chris and actually a psychiatrist tomorrow, and they'll be able to
Oh,
answer that question. Yeah.
awesome. So Hugo, check out IOCDF. That's the International OCD Foundation. So that'll be a great place tomorrow to ask your question and get advice from a psychological expert, a psychiatric expert who will probably have better access. All right. And he says, I follow your app.
Okay.
That's awesome. Cool.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Um, tell me a little bit. So tell me like, OCD and related conditions, so BFRB is a related condition. How do they kind of flow? And flow is a bad, not a great word, but how do they
Okay.
live? How do they exist in your world?
Yeah. Oh, and I see, yeah,
Uh,
Hugo follows. Yes, he's talking
awesome.
about
Yep.
the lives with Ethan too. Yeah, no,
Awesome. Cool.
Ethan does those also. Yeah, Hugo, I think you actually asked that question when I was on last time and I also wasn't able to answer it. So I'm sorry, but tomorrow
Yep.
with Chris and with the psychiatrist. So thank you. Thank you. So for me, gosh, in my world, so I'll say my life now is very much on the professional side. I work in scrupulosity. I live in kind of that space. So I did my doctoral work around reimagining ERP as a spiritual practice, and now consult on scrupulosity cases around the world and run Stick with the Ick and train clinicians and clergy and kind of bridge the gap there, but get to work with folks across a lot of traditions. And I definitely still, experience OCD. I'm somebody who believes there isn't a cure for OCD,
Mhm.
but we can absolutely use skills and tools so that OCD is never in the driver's seat of our life again. And I feel really strongly that that's where I am, and there's still ups and downs. But it's been really interesting that as that is lessened for me, BFRBs actually have been more in that's been one of
Mhm.
more in the driver's seat of something that I've struggled with a little bit more. And the way, and I'm sure you can speak to this more than I can because I'm still learning this. But for me, um, a lot of times that actually is alongside work that I'm doing, where things that
Mhm.
I'm really passionate about, or, I'll spend 12 hours consulting on cases and I'll get to the end of the day and realize I picked all of the skin off my hands
Mhm.
or my feet. And I'm really working on that now, where it tends to be for me when I'm doing things that are really significant, when I'm doing things that are really important, when I'm doing things that maybe in my previous phases of life I would have engaged in compulsions.
Mhm.
BFRBs are something that's coming up for me. So I'm working on kind of some habit retraining
Yeah.
and getting more comfortable doing something different with my hands. I have a whole host of different things over here, but that's been something a little bit newer for me. And again, this is really the first time I'm saying that on a live stream. So thank you for holding
Well,
space for that too.
yeah, and you know, the more you talk about it, the it's part of the hold that it
Yeah.
holds on you, right? And so that's part of the process too, is sharing. I always say the secret makes you sick. And so just being able to be this comfortable to say, yeah, I've been picking, no shame, right? It's just, again, it's a response to imbalance, and it's just all of these conditions, OCD, anxiety, BFRBs, they're just asking us to find healthier ways to rebalance, right? And so when we answer that call, as you are with your OCD, that goes down, right? It doesn't need to call you as much, but then, okay, maybe there's some new work to do to find what are the right strategies for you that are going to actually keep you in that mind body spirit alignment.
Yeah.
um, Hugo mentioned running. Yep, running is a great strategy to keep, movement is medicine. And also asked your opinion about
Oh,
meds. So
yeah.
again, this question, we're not
I'll
medical
always give a
professionals.
disclaimer. Yeah,
Yeah.
not a medical professional. I'm a chaplain, but not a psychiatrist. But I will say, I always tell folks, I strongly encourage folks to work with both their psychiatrist or their psychologist or their therapist and a psychiatrist. And I think meds for OCD can be really helpful. And what I always say is I'm very open about the fact that I'm still on medication for OCD. That's been a part of my journey, and it's one that I used to have a lot of shame around. I am in here in Georgia in the Bible Belt, and I'm a progressive minister, but I'm in a space that actually sometimes meds are not particularly
Mm.
welcomed. And actually, the first time I went to pick up a medication for my OCD, had some words from the pharmacist, and that was years and years ago, and I felt so much shame around that.
Wow.
And but meds very much saved my life. And kind of how I see that with OCD now is that typically between stimulus and response, or between obsession and compulsion, we have a space to choose. And it's a quote from Viktor Frankl. But I think often with OCD, that space feels really, really small, and the compulsion can almost feel automatic, even when we have the skills and tools. And I think what medication does when we're doing the right thing that's guided by a medical professional is it can open up that space a little bit more. We might have 5 additional seconds to make the choice to use that new skill or tool that we're building. So for me, medication gave me some additional space to actually use the skills and tools that I worked so hard on in ERP, where I didn't feel like I had the space to do that before. And I think it looks different for everybody, but I think that can be such a beautiful thing. And thank you, Hugo, also for yes, no, the running for me, the running for me also is
Yeah.
Hugo knows the running for me is a big
Great
thing too. I had a
strategy.
race this weekend, so
Yeah.
yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
nice. Awesome. 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 Yeah. Also not a medical professional, but plus one to, if you're, excuse me, if you're working with the right professionals on your medication and your dosage and it's helping you, no shame. Like,
Mm,
these mental health is, it's chemistry, it's genetic, it's environment, it's hormones, like, and it takes a toolkit. And so,
yeah.
just acknowledging that the pill is not the full answer. There's still work to do. You still got to go for your runs. You still got to eat right. You still got to sleep.
Still got to do my
Um,
ERP. I got to lean into
yep,
that every
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
But I think that's such an important thing to talk about, because I was somebody for a long time, even in chaplaincy, that would tell others, oh, there's no shame in medication. And I had a lot of shame for myself. And I love being able now to say that is such a part of my experience, and just the way that we wouldn't gosh, shame anybody for taking an inhaler for their asthma
Yeah.
or taking a pill for their heart every day.
Yeah.
These are mental health conditions that there's very much something physical going on, where
Yeah.
medication is not something to be ashamed about. It's something that you can be really proud that you're leaning in and doing things to, be able to step forward with your life.
Yeah, I mean, if it's helping, like one of the biggest things that we try to advocate for in the HabitAware community is keep doing what's working. Like even a few months ago, or like almost a year ago, my therapist was like, "Anila, you're doing great. Like, want to wrap it up?" And I'm like, "No, you will see me every 6 weeks or every 3 months, but not. I'm gonna keep doing what's working." And if medication is something that's working for you, I'm on medication for breast cancer, post breast cancer surgery, right? Tamoxifen, so hormone therapy. And I also take a small dosage for my anxiety every morning. And even then, the doctor was like, we're going to, you're going to use this for 3 months. And then I went back and I was like, it's been a year. She's like, well, it's a small dose. And if it's helping you, like, there's no harm, right? Like, there's no harm. So, as long as there's no harm. That's
Hmm.
when, as Hugo's saying, well, sometimes trying to get off something that may not be working, then there's like
That can be hard.
that cycle. And so I think it's really important, and I'm really hopeful that eventually we'll get to a point where the treatment professionals can do different tests to help you know what is the
Yes.
better medication formula for your body, to kind of hopefully mitigate some of that pain that people go through trying
Yeah.
to figure out which medication's right. But there's no shame. I think the only thing is just knowing it's not a magic pill, and
Mhm.
that there's still work to be done, and
Mhm.
it's good inner work. Okay, Katie, we are at
I
a little
know.
bit over time, but any last words about OCD awareness, BFRB awareness, the work you do, and tell us, please, where can folks find you, your
Yeah.
online community? Stick with the ick.
Yeah, no, yeah, we would always love to have people as a part of Stick with the Ick, clinicians, clergy, and folks with OCD who are navigating scrupulosity or just faith is important to them and they're navigating OCD. Again, Stick with the Ick is a community for individuals across religious and spiritual backgrounds. And the idea is really offering resources and community and connection for scrupulosity. So we have stickwiththeick.com on the web. You can find us. You can also download the Stick with the Ick app on the App Store or on Google Play. And we have events going on literally all week long and 24/7 chats. And we would love to have y'all there. And in terms of just closing out with OCD or scrupulosity or
Yeah.
BFRBs, I think for me, it's just always to let folks know there is so much hope.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much hope, and you are absolutely not alone. There is no shame in what you're experiencing. There are people out there to support you. There's evidence-based treatment, and you are so worthy of reclaiming your life. So find a community, find treatment, plug in. And I would also encourage folks to plug in with HabitAware and the just awesome work that you're doing, because just watching it this last week with BFRB Awareness Week has been amazing. So just thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the work you're doing. It's always good. We're stronger together. So come find your community. The healing happens together, and there is so much hope. There's proof of recovery all
Yes.
around you. You just got to surround yourself with the right good people,
Hmm.
and I assure you that with the right folks in your corner and the right support and the right systems, that you too can take control of whatever is blocking you. Thank you so much, Reverend Katie. It was so wonderful to see you
I'm so glad
again.
just to get to connect with you. This was
Yeah,
super
I
fun.
mean,
You
this
just
is like
have
the
the best
first time we're
energy.
really talking.
I know. I'm really excited. I was like, you have such a great energy. We'll have to continue offline. So
Yep. Yeah,
that sounds
yeah.
great.
There's
I'll show this was the fidget I was playing with
oh,
throughout
so
our time
cute.
together. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. My go-to strategy is drinking water. So you'll
I
always see
also,
me.
yep.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for joining us all the way from Portugal, Hugo, and I'm sure there's folks from all over the world, and that's what we want to show, right? You are not alone These conditions do not discriminate race, gender, pink, purple, white, black, yellow, green, whatever color you are. Our brains are messing with us,
Yeah.
and they don't have to. We can find hope. We can find recovery. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Katie, for being with us. And thank you all. Happy end of BFRB Awareness Week and happy beginning of OCD
OCD
Awareness Week.
awareness week.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that.
All right.
Awesome.
All the
Thanks.
best.
Bye.
Bye.